All right, welcome everybody. Again, as Jenny mentioned, I am Jennifer, one of her BCBA supervisees. Pleasure to be with her. And Camille and I are going to give you some good information about the zones of regulation and how we can use them with ourselves and with our kids that we work with and our kids that are in our homes.
I'm glad you guys are here. We're excited to share all of this with you. Um, Jennifer and I are going to say a lot of information today, but we want you guys to understand is that we are not professionals in the zone of regulation. This is stuff that we've used with our kids in our practice with kids, and we want you to be able to go from this and look at what you're doing with your zones and your emotions and recognize that in the kids that you have on day to day, but there's lots of training out there where you can be trained professionally in this. There's curriculum. We're going to provide you with a link at the end of the class to a folder that you can go to that has tons of information about all of that so that you guys can get trained as much as you want. This is an introductory class for you. So we're going to talk about the foundations of the zones, understanding the emotions, regulation, and the 4 zones of framework. We're going to go through a step-by-step process of the zones pathway from noticing your emotions to how you get to regulation. We're going to talk about co-regulation and self-regulation and how those mix together. We're going to give you teaching strategies for home, clinic, and in a schoolroom. And we're going to show you how to build your own toolbox that you can take with you and use when you're dealing with the zones of regulation outside of this class. This is the slide that we just went over. These are all the different things that we're going to talk about. And then this is where we are now. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you for that, Camille. Again, there's 4 zones of the regulation. There's blue, green, yellow, and red, and each of them have 4 different color codes. They all represent a different state of alertness and emotional energy, and all zones are necessary. None of them are bad. We all need to go through all of them. And the goal is to recognize which zone that we're in and choose the tools to help us function effectively. Then there's our first zone, that's the blue zone. And with that blue zone, it just describes low states of alertness and down feelings. And the physical indicators are you might move slowly, you have low energy levels, slouch posture, maybe a quiet voice, you less responsive to the environment, and you may even want to withdraw from others. And your emotional state, you may feel sad or tearful, tired, sick or unwell, bored or disinterested, a lonely or isolated feeling, disappointed, hurt, and you could be hurt physically or emotionally. And just a few strategies that we can use when we're in that blue zone is to seek comfort from others, rest or sleep, gentle movement if you're feeling sluggish, and connection if you're feeling lonely. And if you're sick, you need to seek some type of medical attention, or we have at-home remedies as well.
Okay, next we have the green zone. And the green zone is that state where you're ready to learn, you're feeling just right, you're calm in your body, and you're thinking clear, your brain is working, and you're able to learn in a classroom setting, in a clinic setting. It's where your kids get the most learning, where adults get the most learning. So your body, the physical indicators are going to be, you're going to be relaxed, they have steady breathing, clear thinking, and their emotional state might be calm, peaceful, focused, alert, ready to learn. They're happy and content and feeling okay. And these are the times where you're going to use positive reinforcement. You're going to use engaging and fun activities. And you're going to practice self regulation with them, like deep breathing if you start to see them going out of the green zone. and you're going to encourage a healthy, active lifestyle because if they're hungry, if they're tired, if they're sick, they're not going to be or stay in that green zone. It's just the optimal zone for learning, and it's especially ideal in the classroom. And they're not in any kind of fight or flight state. They're just that's the ready state. It's the green state. And we want you guys to know none of these are bad states. None of these are bad feelings. These are just feelings. They're not behaviors. They're feelings. It's how you feel inside your body, your emotions.
All right, we're in the yellow zone, which is that means caution. The yellow zone describes a heightened state of alertness and elevated emotions. In the yellow zone, we may need to just take action to regulate, to manage our energy and feelings as they get stronger. You have the physical indicators, increased heart rate, you may be fidgety or restless, have a louder voice, faster movements, tense muscles, butterflies in your stomach, and you just start to lose focus. The emotional state or your feelings, you could be frustrated or annoyed, anxious or worried, you may get silly or wiggly, excited or energetic, nervous or confused and overwhelmed, and even feeling stressed. And strategies, just take deep breaths, um, using movement breaks periodically, and use your favorite calming strategies, whether it's take a sip of water, take a deep breath, take space if needed, or walking away from something, and use positive self-talk.
Okay, before we go into the next zone, can you guys in the group chat put a time that you felt like you were in the yellow zone, where you felt overwhelmed, confused, anxious, and how that made you feel?
Eva said before a test. For me, it's before starting new groups with trainees. Sometimes I think it doesn't matter how long we've been doing any of the things that we do. There's always a little bit of yellow zone when new things are happening.
Yeah.
And Jennifer,
Well, for
Ellis
me,
during presentations. Yes, ma'am. And Fallon said meeting new people. Great.
yeah,
Yep. Yes, ma'am. All those things.
all those things.
All
For
those-
me today, it was the training because I was coming in hot. So yeah, a little anxious today. Okay, we're going to go into the red zone. Okay. We are going to talk about the red zone now. The red zone is our fight or flight. It's our body, our brains on survival mode. This is when, if you work with kids that are autistic, this is when they are eloping, biting, hitting, scratching, throwing things, anything but what they should be doing. And it's not about behavior. This is the way they feel on the inside. The physical indicators are just the things that you're seeing from being in this emotional state because they're in fight or flight, and they're going to have rapid heartbeat. They're going to be flush. Their muscles are going to get tense. They're going to yell, scream, that physical aggression. If they're in fight, flight, or freeze. And then you're going to see anger, rage. You can see excitement or elation, overexcitement, terror, panic, devastation, out of control feelings, explosive emotions. You ever had a time when you were really mad at a friend or a husband or a girlfriend and you just kind of lashed out and then later you were like, I have no idea why I did that. I just didn't feel right on the inside. That's the red zone. When they get in this zone, especially if you're working in a clinic with kids, you want to go safety first. The first thing you're going to do is make sure that they're safe. Make sure that there's nothing in the room that can hurt them or that they can hurt anybody else with. Make sure if there's somebody that bites or hits, that there's no one else in the room, only trusted people. And then you need to make sure that you understand what your kiddos' triggers are. Because when they're in this state, their brain is not working cognitively to be able to reason. So make sure you know, does the kid like to be talked to? Does the kid like to be touched? Does the kid usually need a space that's calm by themselves? So you want to use intensive calming strategies, co-regulation with trusted adults, space if they need it. And then after they've come back down and they're in the green zone, yellow zone, then you can process what's happened and make sure. We're going to talk about, as we go through this, what kind of words to use and how to use zone talk so that you're coming at this in the right way. But if you guys could put in the chat a time when you have felt like a time when you felt like you were in the red zone, and two, what places in your classroom, in your house, in your therapy center are considered safe spaces for your children or the people that you work with?
Great questions, Camille. So Jennifer said, telling her teenagers repeatedly to do chores. Yep. I said, dealing with some nasty neighbors. Quisha said, dealing with road ragers, and Fallon definitely agreed with that. So those are our red zones. So what about Camille's second question? Where's the safe space when these things are happening? I know I often turn to my husband and I go sit on my deck because it's a very hidden place and it's a quiet place. And I go, right, you can't see me, so nobody's here. Yeah.
I have a kiddo that's autistic, level 3, and we have a hanging tent on a pole that we use. That's his safe space because he can go in there and he gets the sensory of the swinging. He can bounce in it. And so that's his safe place. Anybody else got one?
Yeah, Fallon said her boyfriend and meditation.
Okay, so remember, the red zone is a heightened state of alertness and intense emotions. And you've lost control of your emotions and your reactions because it's a nervous system response. And the red zone, it represents our brain in survival mode.
All right here we're gonna have a video of a mother and a teenager child tunneling or going through different zones. And we'll start it.
Make sure you pay attention to mom's zone, dad's zone, and the teenager zone.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have questions.
Sorry, y'all.
Okay, I know this doesn't look good, but in fairness to me, this wasn't how the morning started. Axel, honey, time to get up. Come on, sleepyhead. Rise and shine. So the bus comes in 15 minutes. Let's go. You get the picture.
God, never react much.
You missed the bus, and now I have to drive you to school. Get dressed. And take your plate to the kitchen. In case you hadn't heard, we had to let the room service waiters go due to the economy.
Did we answer? What questions did we answer already?
We talked about what color mom was in through the video and what color zone the boy was in through the video.
Okay. What are some strategies mom could have used to calm or stay calm or become calm?
Starbucks? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on,
Yeah.
sister. Leave your kid in bed and go to work. You know, some natural consequences there. I'm all about going and getting a good coffee and getting on with my
Yes.
day. Yep. Quisha said some breathing exercises, taking 2 minutes to listen to a favorite song, right? Work on yourself for a second.
And, you know, as we see mamas in the red zone, what are some of the physical indicators if you all were able to spot out any?
The way she was moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, the yelling and screaming, the water bottle.
Yeah, she was, you could visibly see she was not for it.
Yeah.
Quisha says screaming.
Okay, so this is what zones teach children. So the core skills are understanding emotions. It helps them identify, helps them name what they are so that they can recognize when they're in those zones. It helps them manage their body and emotions by recognizing physical sensations and feelings that they have when they're in those emotions. Helps them, you know, if they're playing a video game and they start to get frustrated about something that's happening, it helps them recognize, oh, I'm feeling this way. This is how my body feels. I must be having this emotion. This is the zone that I'm in. So they're recognizing those triggers and understanding the shifts back and forth. It really helps them get to that place of self-regulation one day. And then our advanced applications, we're going to show you how to build a toolbox for you and how so that you can use this with your kiddos. And it's just personalized coping strategies, whatever is personal for you, for them, what helps you calm down, so you know what to go to and you don't have to be scrambling to figure out, okay, what do I need right now? Or you don't have to be scrambling to figure out what your kids need in those moments. And then you need to match emotional response to the situational severity, the size of the problem. Or am I making a big deal out of this and it's a little bitty problem? Or is this really a huge problem? It shows you how to match that emotional response with what's really going on. And reading other zones. So it also helps with social awareness. So you need to know if the person across from you, what zone they're in, how they're feeling, how they're responding to what you're saying. It helps kids also with, that recognition of others so that they can navigate conversations and what's going on in the world around them.
All right, these are the zone pathways, which is very important when we're going through different emotions or feelings. And this is a 5-step process guide that can teach us from awareness to reflection, building self-regulation skills over time. And that first pathway is to notice. And when you're noticing, you're going to observe what's happening in your body, recognize environmental triggers, become aware of the situation, and just ask yourself, what am I feeling in my body right now? And if you all have ever experienced that or a physical symptom, can you all put that in the chat box? When you're noticing that you're not, when something is wrong with you?
So like for me, when I come home from working all day and my husband and the kids have been here all day and I walk in the kitchen and there is a ton of dishes in that sink, I feel something inside of me, like my body feels like it's vibrating. So that's when I notice that, maybe I'm starting to get a little angry. I need to take a deep breath and realize maybe they just had fun all day and they weren't worried about the dishes, because that can set me into red zone. So what's a time or something that you notice that's a trigger inside your body, how you're feeling?
So we're looking for those feelings when something is off. Camille said she almost feels like she's vibrating. So what do you actually feel?
That's how red zone that situation gets me. Because I'm tired and I don't want to deal with dishes.
Yeah, Quisha said when she's trying to understand a difficult concept or principle, the feelings that she feels inside are overwhelmed, frustrated, defeated. Fallon noted that when she gets triggers that take her out of her peaceful state, that she feels just uncomfortable in general. Okay.
Yep, that's good.
All right. Then as we go through those pathways, then we are going to check in, and that simply is identifying which zone you're in. And with that, you should be able to name your specific feelings and connect your body sensations to your emotions, and ask yourself, which zone am I in and what emotions am I feeling? If anybody can put in the chat box if they find themselves doing that.
All right, so for those feelings you guys just listed in the chat, what zone would that map to? Yep, Jennifer, she's in the yellow when her mind goes blank. So when you're triggered and feeling uncomfortable, yellow. Yeah, that totally sounds that. Not unsafe yet, but starting to feel the anxious, the wobbly.
Once you identify which zone you in, you decide by choosing if this zone works for that situation. And you want to determine if you need to actually regulate and consider your goals for that situation on how you're going to regulate. And think about the expected behaviors and ask yourself, do I need to change my zone? And what is my goal? What do I want my outcome to be?
So stick that in the chat, folks, for the zone that you were in. We had a couple of folks in yellow. Decide, do you need to change your zone? Do you need to regulate? Keep going for us, Jennifer. Take us to the next step of regulating, and we'll see where we come out with that one.
Okay. All right. After once we decided, next we're going to move through the pathway of actually regulating. And we're going to use a tool to shift or maintain your current zone or to get in another zone. And you want to choose and use appropriate tools, and then just apply those strategies from that toolbox. And we're going to show you what a toolbox is shortly, and accept co-regulation if needed. And we're also going to talk about co-regulation, and ask yourself, which tool will help me get to my goal that I'm trying to get to.
All right. So if you felt like you needed to change your zone, stick in the chat what strategy you might have used to help change that zone.
It could be taking a deep breath, sipping some water, breathing, counting, just different things, or talking to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Quisha said she takes a break, watches a calming video, pray, drink some tea, watch a funny video, and Fallon said she agreed to those things.
Yeah, those are some good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. Once you have regulated, then we're at the pathway, the end of the pathway, where we're just wanting to reflect. And that's where we evaluate if the strategy actually worked, because sometimes it may have not worked, or we may need to do something a little bit better or different to get us where we need to be. And we can also consider what to try next time and build awareness of what helps that may have worked this time for you or for the kiddo, or if you're working with somebody. And then ask yourself, did that help? What worked for me, and what might I try differently?
Yeah, Fallon said, okay, ABA, and gave a red heart. And I love this step because in everything we do in ABA, we're not done until we go back and check, is it producing that meaningful positive change? And so this is that step that says, did I get out of this thing what I thought was going to be produced? Yeah, and Eva says positive self-talk helps her get from one zone to a next. Great.
Now we're going to go into co-regulation and what co-regulation is. And so in the zones of regulation, we need to recognize that we don't regulate in isolation. And before our kids can self-regulate, they have to be able to learn to co-regulate with an adult. So kind of like when you have little kids and they fall down and hurt their knee, or they cry when they're younger, and you go alongside them and you make sure that they're okay and you help them calm down. That's co-regulation. We do that with all kids from the time they're little till they get older, and eventually they learn to self-regulate. It's a supportive presence where you're not judging. You're just being there to help them learn how to calm down, how to regulate their emotions. And it's a shared process. And it's laying that groundwork for them to feel safe with you, so that eventually they can do it on their own because you've modeled it for them. And it really helps bring all the zones together, because when you first start this with them, they're not going to know how to determine what the zones are, but you're going to be modeling this for them in everything that you do, and co-regulating them and helping them calm down. And it's just going to kind of bring everything together to make sure that they understand what they're supposed to be doing to get to self-regulation. And you're going to be careful about what you say. Jennifer's going to talk about the adult zones of co-regulation.
Okay. Before I do, if everybody will give a thumbs up if they use some sort of co-regulation before. And when you put your thumbs up, as adults, what's your favorite co-regulation technique that you may have tried? All right. Um, Adults can co-regulate using the zones of regulation. And we always want to stay regulated ourselves by staying in the green zone, modeling that to our kiddos or anybody. Because if they see us calm, they'll typically stay calm, and also just staying regulated because we can't pour from an empty cup. We want to use our zone language, name the zones without judgment to the kids. We can say, I see you're in the yellow zone, would a break help? And we want to offer choices from their toolbox. Let's take some deep breaths together and see if that can help. Model your own zone awareness and tools you use out loud. We always want to validate their feelings. It's okay to be in the red zone. I'm here with you. When you say that, that'll give them some understanding. Again, model regulation, share your own zone and strategies with them so they can see that guided behavior. And just know that the progression typically flows. And with adults, they provide full co-regulation. Adults guide with prompts. Child begins initiating with the support. Child independently self-regulates, and child can co-regulate with others. We do have a just an example. A child is playing in his home therapy. He loves to take apart toys and put them back together. Because of this, his parents have hidden most of the screwdrivers and wrenches out of his reach. That child gained access to the screwdriver and took apart a Fisher Price counting toy. That child began sobbing. Mom was cooking dinner and heard him crying in the other room. Mom went into the room, saw the screwdriver and the toy half apart on the floor. The child was sobbing and wiping his eyes while frantically looking through the room. How could you, as the parent, or the ABA professional, could you have co-regulated with this child? Now, how the scenario played out. In this instance, mom sat on the floor and listened and watched what he was doing in his cues. That child kept looking under things, and mom simply stated, missing, in a monotone voice. He looked at mom and got close to her, looking in her eyes. Mom restated missing. He repeated missing and put his head on her shoulder and wanted a hug. Mom said, help find? He said, fine. Mom asked what was missing. He took her to the toy and it was a small clear washer. They looked around and found it. The entire time he was teetering on escalation, and it was found and put back together. He put it away. He got his blanket and curled up on his mom's lap. Can somebody name one strategy that mom used? She was available and not rushing, and she stayed calm. Absolutely.
Hopefully it'll have sound. If it doesn't have sound, it's not the end of the world for this one. It's mainly this child is upset. No one's quite sure why, and mom is co-regulating.
I can't put your leg under me, that'll hurt you.
Owie. Owie. Don't hurt. Don't touch. No, that hurts. Owie. Owie. No, owie. Stop. Please. Are you sad? Are you sadness? Are you sadness? Why? Why what? Why? Ouch. Ouch where? Who's ouch? Oh, ouch. Yeah. Oh, please don't wipe your nose and do that. Ew. Ew. If you let me, I won't do it.
You skip to almost the end.
What are they doing over there? You see them? They're playing. Watching TV. Oh, Abby. Greg. Drink. Drink. You need a drink? Oh, what? What do you want? You better now? Oh,
So what zone did mom stay in the whole time?
I would say green.
Yeah, mom stayed pretty chill, pretty present, pretty even.
You guys feel free to come off mute and talk instead of just the chat.
I say green as well.
What zone do you think, or I'm just gonna say Benjamin. He's my kid, so I have permission to to say his name. What zone was Benjamin in at the beginning of the video? He started out in kind of the yellow. Before we started this video, he was in red, and we got him down to yellow. And what zone do you think he was in towards the end of the video when he was sitting up and talking to mom?
Maybe greenish.
Yeah, maybe green.
He had calmed himself down. Green.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He was going back into green.
I think it was green.
And I know I saw when we were going through the video, you guys put a lot of stuff in the chat about what we did to regulate Benjamin. But can you guys just reiterate those again? What kind of stuff we did during the video? I saw somebody said giving kisses, rubbing his hair. What were some other things?
I saw you offer squeezes.
Yeah, big hugs, back rubs.
Anything else?
Nice, simple language, just staying really present on his level. Not a lot of pressure.
A lot of calming mechanisms. Absolutely.
And I'm not sure if anybody said this in the chat or not, but one of the things that we've learned to do is matching energy. Is, whatever he's, and I think somebody did say that, is matching energy back and forth. Whenever he's ready for something or your kiddo's ready for something, make sure you match your co-regulation. You don't want to be super excited when they're, angry or when they're, they're kind of in the blue zone and they're kind of mellow or sad. You want to kind of match their energy. And then is there anything that you guys would do differently? Because I'm sure that there's lots of things that could have been done different in that situation. Anything that you would have done differently from what you saw, or anything that you would do when you co-regulate with another child that you might in that situation?
I think you ticked all the boxes, and that reminds me of when my kiddo was a little kid and would have a temper tantrum and how we would get through those things.
So you avoided a whole power struggle. That was a good thing.
No spray bottles like the mom in the other video.
And then, yeah. So these two quotes I found online, and I just think there is really great quotes about self-regulation. That as humans, we're defined by our need to connect and co-regulate. That human survival is dependent on opportunities to successfully co-regulate with one another, by Stephen, I think Porges is how you say it. And then co-regulation creates the brain structure for self-regulation in later life. Otherwise, it's not self-regulation, it's just a fear response. And we've seen that with kids. They don't do things not because they're regulated, but because they're fearful that if they do them, they're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
That comes a lot with punishment instead of reinforcement. Now Jennifer's going to talk about the co-regulation versus self-regulation. What's different about it?
With co-regulation versus self-regulation, with that co-regulation, your child just needs you to help them regulate their emotions because they cannot do it on their own. They need that support. Versus self-regulation, at some point, your child is able to calm down and cope with emotions all on their own. And they can walk away from a frustrating situation unprompted, versus with the co-regulation, just when they're upset, they need you to soothe them and help them and calm them down. That video we just saw was a lovely representation. With co-regulation, they cannot use healthy coping skill strategies independently, and they rely on us to actually go through that zones pathway for them. Versus self-regulation, they can take a break, use a coping skill strategy to calm down and return to an activity without adult support. Just remember that the goal is for them to be able to become capable of being self-regulated on their own. And again, most kids rely on co-regulation, some if not all of the time. And even as adults, we rely on co-regulation. For example, in that video, well, we didn't get to see it, but she actually went in the kitchen and asked her husband to help her tag team to get their son up. That was a form of co-regulation. And then we seek comfort from our spouses, friends, siblings. When we're upset, having a bad day or stressful day, we may need them to talk, vent, or hang out or something. That's all a form of co-regulation, and it's normal and it is healthy.
We're going to move into teaching the zones framework. Okay, so you're going to start with yourself. You're going to model this. You're going to share your own feelings. You're going to tell them, like while you're walking around, oh man, I'm not feeling right today. I think I'm in the yellow zone. I think I need to take a few deep breaths. You're going to talk about how you're feeling. You're going to get really comfortable with talking about the zones, really comfortable with talking about how you're feeling and what you're going to do to change how you're feeling and to get back in the green zone. And when you're in the green zone, you're going to talk about, man, I feel really great today. I just feel like I'm in the green zone. I'm ready for anything. You're just going to get really comfortable talking about this so that they're getting introduced to the language, to the literacy. And then you're going to introduce it to them one zone at a time. You can use books, visuals, things on the wall. There's lots of different tools that you can use for each zone. And you're going to practice identifying when anyone is in the green zone. So if you're going to begin with the green zone, it's the first one. You want to talk about this with them when they're in the green zone. You want to start teaching this to them when they're in the green zone. You don't want to start trying to teach what zone they're in when they're in the red zone or in the height of a tantrum or throwing things or really upset. You want to start introducing this in the green zone. And then you're going to help them connect physical sensations and their feelings with the zones. You're going to help them identify what's going on in their body. How am I feeling when I'm playing that video game and I keep falling off the world and I can't get back on and stay on and I'm ready to throw this controller across the room? How am I feeling on the inside? You know, is my heart rate getting faster? Am I feeling flushed? Is the hair standing up on the inside of my head? Are they standing up? You know, what do I want to beat my brother up who's sitting next to me who keeps making it on there every time? How do I feel on the inside? So that they can get those physical sensations matched with those zones. So that when it comes time to recognize those triggers and recognize when they're going into that zone, so they can do the pathway, they know what they already know what they're doing. And then you're going to do it in real time. When you're talking, after you started introducing it, you're going to do it in real time. You're going to talk about it with them in real time. You're going to use language that celebrates zone awareness. You're not going to use any judgmental language. You're going to use things like, instead of saying, I see, you know, you seem like you're in the red zone, you're going to say things like, you know, it seems like that really upset you. What zone do you think you were in when that happened? Because they should, by this time, be able to recognize the zones. And it's going to be different for each age. You know, your younger kids are going to need lots of visual representation. Your school age kids are going to be able to explore triggers and problem size, and then problem size. And then teenagers are going to be able to have conversation about social context. And your neurodivergent learners, they're going to need lots of visuals and lots of sensory friendly tools. It's going to take them longer to get it, but then you're going to have some kids who are on the, yeah, I see that. Sorry, guys. You're going to have some kids that are on the spectrum that are just going to get it right away. And they're going to be able to, you know, because they're able to cognitively understand and pick up on it really quick. And then there's going to be some kids at different levels that's going to take them a while. So you just got to match them where they are and just model it, get real comfortable with it. And then this is teaching approaches for parents. So remember that when you're doing this with your kids anywhere, that this is not about compliance. It's not about behavior. This is about feelings and how they feel on the inside. It's intended to offer positive and proactive instruction, and it helps people gain an understanding of their feelings. So display the zones anywhere, common areas around the house. You can create your own family check-in board. Use visual, put it into their visual schedules. You know, a certain part of the day, okay, we're going to check in. How are you feeling? How did you enjoy that activity? How did that activity make you feel? You know, if they see them get a little frustrated during the activity where it's hard or it's something that's boring or whatever else, you put it in your visual schedule. Put it in as part of what you do. And then have something portable that you can take with you. But when you're talking about these, make sure that you just, I can't iterate enough, behaviors are separate from the zones. Don't say the behaviors in the red zone. Just use things like, I threw that. What zone what do you think you were in? You threw that. When you threw that, what zone do you think you were in? And make it an individualized approach with everything you do when you're teaching this, and respect their sensory, their cultural differences. So just make sure you know what you're doing when you're doing this and you're being respectful of them. So morning check-ins. How many times your kids got out of bed and you're like, man, you got off on the wrong side of the bed this morning, didn't you? They're just not happy when they come downstairs. So, you know, check in, you know, hey, how you feeling this morning? What zone do you think you're in? And just help them regulate if they need it. And then transition times. You know, what zone do we need to be in for a homework? I know a lot, my kids hate doing homework. They're doing it right now. Bedtime reflection. How was your day today? Did you enjoy that? What zone do you think you were in? If if they did or didn't enjoy it. And then mealtime discussion is a great time to talk about what happened during the day and how they were feeling, what happened at school, what happened at practice or dance lessons, or and if they tell you, well, that person stepped on my tutu and it really pissed me off, So just find out how they're feeling, check in, talk about the zones, constantly talking in language that is, calming, affirming, talking about the zones. And then we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but you can create your own home toolbox. Make sure you know where the safe space is, what sensory toys, sensory tools that they need when they get frustrated or in one of the other zones, and to practice calming strategies, especially when you're in the green zone, so that they know what they are when you get to those other zones, and make them easily accessible. And then for modeling, you need to share your own zones, make it normal to share emotions, make it normal to model the tools, and then make sure you process everything together after they're out of those zones and back in the green, that you really process, what you're doing and what zones they were in, and talk about it with them. Can you guys name a time at home where using a check-in or integrating this would have maybe helped with your own kids? And you can come off mute or you can put it in the chat.
I help my sister regulate with her 20-year-old son all the time so that she can stay calm and be a supportive mom and not being a screaming mom all the time. She's just starting to learn all of this.
Well, and it's hard because a lot of times a lot of you on here are RBTs, BCBAs, going for your BCBA parents. A lot of times I find that, and even with myself, that the things I'm learning to do BCBA wise, I don't always use at home. So we kind of forget about doing this with our kids and with our spouses and different things like that. We're going to talk about, Jennifer's going to walk you through educators and in the therapy setting.
We have some approaches for teaching in the classroom setting for classroom implementation. That environment setup is very important. Dedicated zones display area in the classroom. We can have a poster in the classroom where it can something to the effect, what zone am I in, and it can have the 4 different zones and the feelings and the faces where they can see that. They can also have a check-in station in the classroom. I think it's cool to have a calm corner with tools. I know, like a bean bag, kind of like divided in the room in a little small area, bean bag, and maybe a little fidget box or a little box with different tools in it, and maybe like a warm lamp or something, or maybe a few LED lights, and if they can have that type of setup in their classroom. And visual reminders again throughout the room is very important. As far as that instructional strategy, we can teach lessons during optimum times when we're able in the classroom. Integrate the zone concepts into their academic content. You can teach it in a group and have some kind of theme to go with it. But when we teach it, we have to teach it to them gradually because we can't teach it all at one time. But a teacher can definitely make this out of a lesson plan in the classroom. Use literature connections, learning different ways to use that verbiage and language with them in the classrooms. That will help. Build in movement breaks where they give them a time where they all can stretch together or run or jog in place. That just do something to get them to recognize the zones that they're in. And that'll just follow with the whole class practice. Morning meeting check-in, circle time. You can have an activity to build that momentum for identifying the zones that they're in, taking different zone breaks between subjects. If they're smaller kiddos, some of them do not like transitions. If they're in a, maybe hypothetically, they're in an autism classroom where they have to go through different stations, they may not like transitions. Or if they're older, going from math to science, I know I would need a break for that, definitely. So we can incorporate breaks. Class problem solving using zones, that's pretty cool, where they can all have like a live learning class scenario together, or maybe break it down in groups. And of course, if they have peers in their class, they can do peer support systems, where they can help each other, or learn how to help each other. And also we can incorporate parallel play or something like that if they're smaller. For as individual support, you do have some that need one-on-one guidance. They don't know they may not know how to do this concept in a large group in the class. So you can put like personal tool cards for their desk, tape them on there or whatever you need to do, so they can have like a small zone check-in. Scheduled regulation breaks, if you know they need more support than others, put them on a timer so they can know what, if you know what to be expected of throughout their day. And then we always have support staff in the classroom that we have to collaborate with, that can get these kids through these different zones and identify them throughout their school day. Or we could do the role playing.
What?
Oh, this is so hard. What in the world kind of problem is this?
Jennifer, it seems like you're frustrated.
Shut up talking to me. I'm trying to figure out this problem.
It seems like it's a really hard problem and you're frustrated. Is there a way that I can help?
You can leave me alone. That'll help if you're not going to give me the answer.
Well, I can't give you the answer, but I'd love to walk through it with you and help you find the answer.
Sure.
Do you think if we took a couple of deep breaths, that might help you calm down before we get started?
Yeah, I guess we can.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so I can see you're frustrated about this problem. So how about we walk through it together and we'll see if we can get to the answer. Which problem is it?
It's number 2. I do not understand that word, and you asked me to explain that, and I don't even know how to write out the problem, Mrs. Lehman.
That's a really hard problem. You're not the only one that's had trouble with that. I've walked several students through it. So why don't we get started and figure out what the answer is together? And I bet when we get done, you'll understand it a little bit better.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So now that we've worked through the problem, do you understand it?
I do. And then you also showed me how to write it out and show my work and use this different form over here where it can help me. So yeah, I think I just about got it.
Earlier, when you were so frustrated, we've talked about zones of regulation. What zone do you think you were in?
Well, I was really frustrated, so I was in the yellow zone. But then when you were bothering me, I ended up getting in the red zone. I am so sorry, Mrs. Lehman, for screaming and shouting at you, but it's just this work.
Yeah, I could tell you were frustrated. That's okay. That's completely okay. I'm very proud of you for being able to recognize what zone that was in and for taking your deep breaths and being able to calm down and work with me. That was a great job.
All right, thank you.
Some of you guys put some stuff in the chat. What did the teacher do to co-regulate with the student? So Quisha said, asked which zone do you think you were in? Mindfulness. Proud of the encouragement, motivation. And then Fallon said green and red initially. Good job. Well, that answered question two, what other zone was she in before red or after red or at the end? Is there any other strategies that you guys can think of that you might have used in a situation like this or you could have used? We're going to move on to in the therapy center.
Okay, we have clinical teaching approaches for ABA therapy, whether it's in the clinic, in the home, or sometimes ABA is in school as well. Speech, OT, all those services. Of course, there's always an assessment phase with everything we do in ABA. So we want to evaluate their current regulation skills. What do they know currently? What can they identify? What is their overall skill repertoire on the zones of regulation and identifying their feelings. Identify their sensory preferences. We could do a preference assessment. We can ask mom or anybody or the caregiver if they like squishes, squishy stuff, crunchy, squeezes, no lighting, headphones. Let's just identify what those sensory preferences are. We also want to know what their environmental triggers are. Again, if they don't like light, they don't like loud noise. They may not like because the therapist changed their hairstyle or wore a fuzzy shirt. Also, what's very important is how when at the start of their day, we need to assess and ask the parent what kind of night did they have, what kind of morning did they have before they came to ABA, because sometimes that transition can happen and we don't know what's happened or something has happened that has triggered them. And then once we know they're determined, once we know that, we can determine their learning style on how we can teach them the zones of regulation. And on our skill building with them, we want to start with zone identification. And that start one by one, start with that blue zone first. Do not start 2 or 3 zones at one time because that will confuse them. Build their body awareness, so they'll learn how they're feeling or the different sensations of their bodies. And then we're going to develop their emotional vocabulary, getting them to learn that verbiage, I feel or I am. So they'll know how to express those feelings when they're feeling different feelings. Practice the tools used in sessions so we can build their consistency. And with generalization, we want to create home and school plans where they can use these in the home school community across multiple settings. When we're in our parent training, we want to train our caregivers and our teachers on whoever how to co-regulate, how to go through that zones pathways, use real life scenarios with the kids and the caregivers who you're training, because sometimes the scenarios give them a better understanding. And of course, monitor progress. We in ABA, we have to take data and track everything. So that's a must. So we can see that they're understanding this and they're making strides. Advanced applications, use those social skill integrations, executive function support, trauma-informed adaptations, and cultural considerations. All right, there are common mistakes to avoid when we're utilizing these zones of regulation and also when we're teaching them. We just have to be mindful of a lot of things when working with individuals. One common mistake is making green the good zone. That mistake is just simply treating the green zone as the only acceptable zone, and it's actually not, because all of them are acceptable and all of them are important. We want to emphasize on all zones and let that person know that all zones are okay and expected in different scenarios. The next one is using zones for punishment. We absolutely cannot use a zone for punishment. That is a big, big mistake. When we tell them, you're in the red, go to timeout. The correct way would be, I see that you're in the red. Let's use our tools together to see if we can calm down. The third one is focusing on behavior instead of feelings. We mistake that with by saying, hey, stop that red zone behavior. Let's not do that to our kiddos. Correct way is we can say, your body seems to be in the red zone. And what are you feeling right now?
Another one is rushing to implementation. You don't want to rush. You want to take time, like we talked about, all the different pieces of modeling it all the time, talking about one zone at a time, starting with the green zone. It takes months to build the literacy around this, and it's not going to happen instantly. You're not going to get instant mastery, so your kiddos are definitely not going to get instant mastery. And it's going to take time to build it into something where you can use it as a tool during meltdowns. And you shouldn't use it before they have it mastered. Because if you try to use it before they have it mastered, then it's gonna cause issues where they're gonna see you bring out the zones of regulation and they're gonna run the other way. And you're gonna have a really hard time ever bringing them back to the table.
Yeah.
You also want to ignoring the individual differences. This is going to work differently for each kid. What might work for one kid might not work for the other one. You might be on the green zone with one kid for 6 months, and another kid, you might be all the way to the red zone and using it in therapy by then. You got to make sure that you use it to support each one's needs, pace it out individually, and make sure that you understand what your kids' triggers are. Everyone's individual on this. And then adult dysregulation. You cannot co-regulate with someone if you're in the red zone and the yellow zone. I mean, to me, that's two girlfriends getting together mad at their husbands and now they need bail money. You can't regulate in the green zone, in the red zone or the yellow zone. You've got to prioritize your own zone first. It's not selfish, it's essential. You have to prioritize your own greenstone first. You've got to be monotone, match their energy, and stay within the green zone. And if you guys avoid these mistakes, it'll go a whole lot easier for you when you are working on the zones with your kiddos. Jennifer's going to start talking about the building your toolbox.
Okay, yes. Building our toolbox is very important with ourselves and with our kiddos that we're working with or in the home with. We have toolboxes for blue, green, yellow, and red. For the blue, that goal is to increase their energy and alertness. We could do physical movement, jumping, dancing, and walking, cold water on our face or our hands, play some upbeat music, eat a crunchy or sour snack. I like to chew gum. Jenny gets on me all the time, but she knows that I love gum. Bright lights and fresh air. When we're in the green zone, we can maintain calm, focused state. Tools we can use is mindful breathing, positive self-talk, organized routines, balanced activities, healthy sleep, and nutrition to stay in that green zone. We're in the yellow zone. Our goal is to calm down before reaching red. Let's take deep breaths, balloon breaths, square 8 breathing, figure 8, taking a break, sensory tools, fidget, stress ball, putty, or anything like that. Talking to a trusted adult. Progressive muscle relaxation. When our muscles are tense, we can kind of move our muscles in and out. When we're in the red zone, our goal is to ensure that we're safety is always first, then calm. Make sure that we have a safe space to calm down. Heavy work, pushing a wall, carrying objects. To me, kind of like we could do some behavior momentum as well. Do cold and warm sensory inputs. Adult co-regulation presence is very, very important when our kiddos are in the red zone that can't self-regulate, and waiting until ready to talk. With this toolbox, you want to We did have it where we were going to build your own toolbox, but we don't have time. So for kiddo's sake, we have some examples up here where you can do a bin, and we can put their things in there that they like. They can have a break. You can make a break card. Um, you can use a body sack, drink water, take a walk. You're going to make that toolbox for that individual child and put it in a good location where they can get to it. And then we'll have something where we'll give you an example of this where you can use it and personalize it for your kiddo.
So the one in the middle, the zones of regulation with at the bottom middle, this is actually one I use with one of my kiddos. And the way that we did this, just to make it very simplistic for you guys, is we made this sheet, and we took this and we made sheets for each zone, and we put it in a notebook, and we went through every emotion that's listed in the green zone. And then for each emotion, we talked about, name a time that you felt like this. What happened? How did it make you feel? So they had examples in their notebook of those particular zones that meant something to them. And then after we went through every single emotion and every single zone, then we came back and we put pictures of what he said he needed to calm down so that he could go when he was upset, and instead of having to talk it, he could point to a picture and say, this is what I need right now. I need a walk. I need a break. Just, it's that simplistic. So we hope that you guys have some key takeaways of that. No, all zones are normal and necessary. No zone is bad. To try to co-regulate with your kids and adults, and be aware of the zones and talk about it all the time. Make it normal, and build your own toolbox for yourself, for your kids, for your clients. You know, just create whatever visuals you need. In that the link that we gave you, there's links to the different curriculums and where you can find it. I put some of that in there for you guys. There's all kinds of resources. And I'll also put in there, I actually found the website yesterday for the lady who made the curriculum, the OT that created the zones of regulation. So I'll add that in there too with another document I'm getting ready to put in there for you guys.
And again, thank you all for coming out and joining us.
I don't have any questions remaining. I just want to say, ladies, you guys did a fantastic job. This was a lot of information. And I asked for the slides because it was great information, but I couldn't write it all at once. And I do have to leave, but this was very great. And I just want to say thanks again, ladies.
All right, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Same here. Great job. A lot of information. It should have been 2 hours instead of 1.5. Y'all did
You're right.
great. Oh, y'all did a great job.
Thanks for coming.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for coming.
Oh, you're welcome.